everyone, welcome back to JISDAC's 5-minute Sabbath School Summary. We are now in lesson number 3 with the title, Pride versus Humility. So this week's lesson will remind us that pride is one of the greatest barriers in our relationship with God, while humility is the foundation of true spiritual growth. Our memory verse says, "For whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted." Luke 14 verse 11. So from this lesson, we will be reminded several things about pride and humility. As a Christian, we learn that pride began with Lucifer and led to sin entering the world. The Bible warned us in 1 John 2 verse 15 and 16, "Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life is not of the Father, but is of the world." So from these verses, we learn that pride causes us to depend on ourselves instead of God, and making us forget that everything we have comes from Him. But Jesus teaches us about humility through the parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector. One proudly praised himself, while the other humbly cried for mercy. In Luke 18 verse 13, "And the tax collector standing afar off would not so much as raise his eyes to heaven, but beat his breast, saying, 'God, be merciful to me, a sinner.'" Jesus concluded, "I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted." Luke 18 verse 14. So they show that God values a humble and repentant heart, not self-righteousness. We also can see the example from Moses, who chose suffer with God's people rather than the worldly honor. In Hebrews 11 verse 25 say that Moses, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the passing pleasure of sin. Despite his greatness, the Bible says he was very humble. The true humility comes when we surrender to God. Even the disciples struggle with pride, arguing about who was the greatest. And Jesus corrected them by saying, "For who is greater? He who sits at the table or he who serves? Is it not he who sits at the table? Yet I am among you as the one who serves." In Luke 22 verse 27. So this verse teaches that in the kingdom of God, the true greatness is measured through humility and service, not position or power. And Paul also reminds us that let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind. Let each esteem others better than himself. Philippians 2 verse 3. Well, in Philippians 2 verse 8 finally show us the greatest example of humility is Jesus himself, who humbled himself to the point of death on the cross. So this lesson reminds us again that pride pushes us away from God, but humility draws us closer to Him. When we truly look at Jesus, we realize our need for Him and learn to live a life of service and surrender. So from this lesson, let us ask ourselves, are we individuals with thought of pride who always say, "I am enough," or with humility who always say, "God is enough"? Are we relying on ourselves, or are we humbly depending on God? Because the Bible makes it clear, "But He gives more grace." Therefore He said, "God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble." James 4 verse 6. So in the end, the lesson of pride and humility is not just about understanding, but it's about choosing. Every day we are faced with a decision to rely on ourselves or to depend on God. So may we choose humility so that God can shape, lead, and exalt us in His perfect time. So that's all for the summary of our lesson number 3. Thank you and God bless.